so in this video, you're going to see a couple of different methods, a lot of different methods actually, to process the HDR images that you saw, I think, in another video. So I actually broke that one video into two, shooting the HDR and then processing, so it may feel a little bit weird. But this is the one about processing, and there are, like I said, there's a number of different ways to process the images into an HDR. You don't have to do all of them or anything like that. But I wanted to show you different apps that you can use, different styles, different methods, just so you would know that stuff. So here you go. All right, so now we're going to take those images and make them into an HDR. So things have kind of changed a couple times in Photoshop, so this may be a little bit different than other versions may do it, but I'm in the 2018 version, I think, but it seems to change all the time. But anyway, I'm going to go up to File and go to Automate and merge to HDR Pro. And then you'll get a dialog where you can choose the files you want to use. I'm going to go to Browse, and I'm going to pick those images that we shot, or I shot. I'm going to choose the NEF files, which are the raw files. You might get better results using the raw files than the JPEG files, but it also works with JPEGs. But I'm going to use the raw files. I'm going to go, because there's more data in the raw files, I'm going to go to Open, and then I'm going to make sure this is checked, Attempt to automatically align source images. So you should have, I think like we said, you should use a tripod, but if you didn't, you might want to check that, and then it might help to align the images. Sometimes it might be wrong. It's definitely good to use a tripod. All right, so this part it might take a little bit. It's trying to crunch through all those images, and they're pretty big images, and they have a lot of data in them as far as the bit depth go. The bit depth, again, is how much data is used to store the color of each pixel. So it makes the file sizes bigger, but it also gives you more dynamic range in your image. All right, so it came up. So you'll see this dialog box. Down here at the bottom, you see these different frames. Those are the images that we used. If you didn't want to use one, you could uncheck these and not use it. So maybe I'll uncheck this. Well, I'll just leave them. There's 7 of them. I might not need this really dark one, or the really light one maybe. But and you could use, a minimum of 3 images probably. But I'll leave them all on and see how that goes. So over here on the right, you have your settings. So it may come up this way under 16-bit, or it may come up as 32-bit. So if it's 16-bit, there are a bunch of built-in presets here. They are not too hot, to put it mildly. I think in your if you have the Scott book, then he talks about how bad they are. But there is a preset in there called Scott 5, which is from Scott Kelby, and that one's not too bad. It has that HDR kind of look to it. Very crispy, kind of high saturation, lots of detail. So if you choose that one, you'll kind of see what it looks like. Down below here, it says remove ghosts. So if I uncheck that, then it won't try to get rid of ghosting. Ghosting, again, is when there's movement between the different shots. So especially if someone's moving, they may be in the shot for one image and not in the shot for another, which could mess up your shot, your HDR, because it's trying to put those together and there's a person there and then they're not there. We don't really have that in this one, but so I might be able to get away with not having that on, but I'm going to turn it on just to show you what it does. And when I turn it on, you'll see it has a green outline around one of these images, and that's the one it's going to use to try to get rid of the ghosting. You can change that just by clicking on a different one. And the only thing that was really moving in this scene was probably the wind was kind of blowing this tree a little bit, so I want to pick one that looks like it's not kind of blurring out from the movement. So it will try to automate it for you, but you can always choose the one you want. They're about the same. It doesn't really matter in this image too much. Down below here, you have a couple of settings. So I'm back on, let's go back to Scott 5 here. And there's a couple of settings here. There's radius. So that's the glow around the edge of highlights and shadows. So if I turn that up, and then turn on the strength a little bit, you'll see this sort of white glow. That's an HDR thing that you'll see sometimes where the transitions are. Yeah, it's kind of hideous actually, but if you like that, you can turn that up. If you want to smooth it out a little bit, you can turn on this edge smoothness checkbox. You can see a little bit down here, it's getting a little bit, changes a little bit. It kind of mellows it out a little bit. It's not so crazy, but you can adjust that to what you want. These sliders will adjust brightness, the gamma will, the exposure will kind of too. You can definitely mess with these if you want. You could do a lot of this stuff later in Photoshop and Camera Raw, which I'll show you as well. So some people say not to use these too much. The one that's actually causing, let me go back to Scott 5, because every time I'm changing those, it's changing my settings. So the one that's actually doing all the HDR kind of feel is this detail slider. So if I go down to 0 or -100, it looks like you have like a vision problem, right? But if I go to 0, it's in the middle. Well, actually, it's not in the middle. It's like right there. Yeah, there's 0. Yeah, it's still kind of flat and kind of washed out. But you see if I go far to the plus side, it gets very crispy, right? That kind of HDR, kind of crispy, contrasty kind of look. So that's what that kind of does. There's also a shadow slider and a highlight slider that don't do as much as the ones would in Photoshop and Camera Raw, so we'll probably do that there. There's also a vibrance slider for contrast of colors that aren't really already saturated, or for saturation of colors that aren't really saturated already. And then there's a saturation slider as well. So again, you can do all that stuff in Photoshop after. So just wanted to show you that. If I go back to Scott 5, here's those settings, and you can definitely play with those and use those if you want to get that some of those looks. There's probably better apps, which I will show you, to get more of the HDR kind of look, but you can do it that way. What we're going to do is start, though, by going to do kind of a more realistic version. So I'm going to change this mode up here, which says 16-bit. I'm going to change that to 32-bit. And when you do that, all your controls go away. And you get kind of a flat look, but that's okay because we're going to work with that after. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and check this checkbox that says complete toning in Adobe Camera Raw. We're going to do this 2 times and I'll show you the difference. But if I check that, it's going to open the image in a Camera Raw kind of adjustment thing. So I'm going to check that, click on Tone in ACR. That's all right, so that's done. So if you're very sharp-eyed, you can tell that this video has been edited a little bit because it changes in Photoshop and things. So my voice might change. It might be the middle of the night or the middle of the day, time travel stuff going on. So bear with me on that. But anyway, so here we are in Camera Raw. So after that is processed, it opens up. It's pretty flat looking, right? Meaning low contrast. But now I can still use all my Camera Raw adjustments to improve that. And because there's so much data in this image, I really can do a lot. Meaning there's a lot of image information in the pixels, so that I can adjust those quite a bit. So generally what I'm going to do here, I think this is a little bit dark maybe overall, so I'm going to go up here a little bit with the exposure, and you can see that if I go all the way this way, you see how it says like +8? I have all this image data in there. That's a little dark, right? And that's a little bright, but there's a lot you can do here with this image, and we're gonna make it look a little bit better. So I'm gonna go bring it up just in general, just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to, let's see, I'll bring down the highlights kind of like a little bit so I get some of this stuff back. I'll bring up the shadows a little bit, or a lot actually. I'm gonna hold down Shift and double click on the white slider to automatically adjust my whites. And I'll do the same thing with black. You may have seen that in a different video. And that's starting to look a little bit better. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of texture and clarity just to see, and I can always adjust this later too, right? To make it a little bit crisper. And I'll even go down to the curve here, and I will go to, let's do a medium contrast curve right there. And get a little bit contrast here. And yeah, and there's obviously everything else I could do in there as well. Tons of stuff. But what I want to do actually now is go in and even brighten up some of these darker areas. And remember, we're trying to do, or on this one anyway, I'm trying to do more of a realistic version. So I'm not going to make it look, you know, like that Scott 5 where it's super HDR look. I'm just going to try to make it look natural, but also bring back some of this stuff in here. So what I'm going to do is go up to the mask tool, or masking, where I can do a brush, an adjustment brush, basically. And this has changed since back in the day, so that's why this part of this video is different. Now you can do masking with your adjustment brushes. So if you see a different video where that's doesn't work quite the same way, that's because this has changed. So here is my my brush, and then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger with my square brackets. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go down to the light section here, And I want to turn off auto mask actually, because what auto mask will do is it'll try to look for edges, and I don't really want to do that at this point. I want to just do a straight brush. And then you've got size and feather and flow controls and density, which maybe I'll play with a little bit, but I'll leave it like it is right now. I think the flow is by default like 50, but I'm going to go a little higher. That's like how fast the effect applies, almost. You can think of it that way. So I'm going to go a little bit plus on the exposure here, and I'm going to start painting in these darker areas. And maybe in the grass a little bit, and over this awesome slide that's too small for me. And then I'm going to go over here. And then you can see up here, if you guys can see that, there is a little mask there, right? And that is showing wherever that's white, that's where the effect is being applied, and where it's black, it's not. So it's just like masking in other parts of Photoshop where you can show or hide parts of layers and effects, but this time it's doing this exposure adjustment. So if I do this, you can see what's going on, right? I can go make that look like, you know, a horror movie, or I can make it look radioactive if I want to. So I'm just going to bring that up a little bit, and that's where I could change that flow and things like that, and that will speed up and slow down that process. I can also change the density of the mask. This is if I paint something new here. If I make a mistake, I can hold down the Option key and I can erase parts of that mask. You can see I just put a little hole in that mask right there. I'm going to undo that because I don't want that. So there, I brought that up a little bit. Let's go back down and see. I brought up the exposure a little bit, maybe a little bit of contrast in that area. I don't know, but that could do that overall too. And I'm definitely going to bring up the shadows a little bit. So maybe I'll do the exposure less than the shadows more. So there is before and after. Wow, that's crazy. So that's good. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to bring down some of the highlights. So I'm going to go up here to where it says create new mask right there. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to use the brush, and there's a lot of other things you could do, but I'm using the brush in this case. And I'm going to go up here. This time I'm going to go down to light, and maybe this time I will turn on the auto mask because I want to just get the sky up here. I could also try select sky, but I'm just going to paint it instead. I'm going to take the exposure and go down a little bit. And I can always adjust that after. That's the good part. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to keep the crosshairs off of the tree and off of this roof so that it tries to do that auto mask for me, a little bit of harder edge. And if you look at it, it does have a harder edge there. That's what the setting that I used up here, auto mask, does. It looks for edges and tries to not go over them, as long as you don't take that cursor over the edge. And now I'm going to turn off auto mask, and I'm going to do this area down here a little bit too, just to show you that I can do that at the same time, and maybe a little bit of this umbrella, although it looks fine, but that was probably too much. I'm going to undo that. I want a little bit of highlight on that thing. And you can see I didn't get inside of here. If I was going to really do this, I would spend more time and get inside of these areas here that need to be maybe a little bit darker in there like that. But so now I can go down and adjust the exposure there, and I can bring down the highlights in there. Maybe not too much. It looks kind of strange. But yeah, so there we go. So I've made a couple of adjustments, overall adjustments, and then I made a couple with the masking tool or the paintbrush tool, right? And then there is before and after on that guy, and I'm doing Command Z to see that. And then, yeah, I think that's good. So I'm going to go back down here and say okay. And there it is. Let me make this fit a little bit better. So now here's before and after. Ah, there we go. Sorry. I just had to redo all those. So when I did that, I wanted to show you, sorry about that. When I did that, I wanted to show you that it went from, if you can see this, it went from a 32 to a 16-bit image. So now it's got less image data in there, but we've processed it. And you can also see that since that did that on the background image, I don't really have a way to go back and adjust that. It's just like it's basically as if I had gone up to the filter and gone to the camera raw filter and done it that way. So I'll show you one more way to do it where you can make some adjustments after the fact using smart filters. All right, so this time I wanted to show you how to open them in a film strip so you can make adjustments before they are merged into one HDR. So this time I'm going to go up to File up here, and I'm going to go File, Open. Instead of Automate, Merge to HDR, I'm going to go to File, Open, and I'm going to select all those images. So I can click on one and hold down Shift and click on the others, or click on the rest, right? And then I'm going to click Open, and then now it opens in a film strip. So you can click on these individually down here and make the adjustments that you want to make. So if there's something that you wanted to do particularly, and I'm not going to do it, but you have all your same HDR or all your same camera raw controls over here. So let's say if I wanted to go in here and, I don't know, brighten the exposure or something. But then you do have a range of brightnesses here already. So, but that's just a different way to do it. And then what you would do then, once you get done and make your adjustments individually, is I'm going to hold down Shift, or I'm going to click on this one, hold down Shift and click on this one. And then there's a little menu that pops up on top of, if you roll over the film strip, and then you can go to Merge to HDR, and you'll get this dialog that says HDR Merge Preview. And I'm going to say Align Images, Apply Auto Settings, sure. I'm going to say Deghosting Medium. So you have a menu this time. And then I'll just click Merge. And I'm going to skip this overlay part, or you can adjust the ghosting, but I'm going to say Merge and click Save, and then it's going to open, and it just kind of opens in the film strip. So here is the last image. I think this is the HDR one down here. So it's still open, and then I can click Done or Open, and it'll open in Photoshop. So if I click in Open, now it's open in, if I could see all that, there we go. Now it's open in Photoshop. And actually it did some sort of adjustments on its own, but I can still now go back if I want to. This is a 8-bit image now, but I still could go back and do the stuff I did before with camera raw filter and stuff like that. I'm going to go to File, Automate, and Merge to HDR Pro. And I'm going to choose the same files again. This time, yeah, that's the same files, right? And I'll say OK. So that time I edited out the boring parts for you. That's cool, right? So you didn't have to watch that. So I'm going to go ahead and check on, I'll leave Remove Go Soft this time. This time I'm going to also uncheck Complete Toning in Camera Raw, and I'll just uncheck that, and then I'll say OK. And now it's just going to not open in that Camera Raw filter, and instead just open as an image. So there it is as an image, and it looks kind of that dingy color that we saw before. So up here it says now we're at 32 bits instead of 16. So we have tons and tons of data in this image, but we can't really see it because it's all kind of squished in there. So I'm going to go up and I want to use that same filter, but it's grayed out, and that's because I'm at 32 bits. So I have to change my mode, my image mode. I'm going to go up to Image Mode and go to 16 bits so that more of the Photoshop stuff will work. So once I open that, I get this different dialog that's HDR toning. It thinks I want to tone this image as I convert it, but I actually don't. And I'll show you this one in a minute, but I'm just going to go where it says Method here and go change it from Local Adaptation to Exposure and Gamma. And what that kind of does is it doesn't do anything. I just leave it. I just put it on Exposure and Gamma, and then it goes back to the way it looked before I did it opened this dialog, and I'm going to say OK. The reason we did that is because we wanted to switch to 16-bit, but we didn't want it to do anything in the process. Now I can do my camera raw processing on this image and have it be editable. So first I'm going to go over here to my layers palette on top of my background layer, which is my image here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go Convert to Smart Object. And we have to wait for a second for that, and then it comes up and it has this little icon that means it's now a smart object. The reason I'm doing that is because now I can use that camera raw filter and I can adjust it after the fact. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go up to Filter. Camera raw is now visible because we're at 16 bits. I'm going to go Camera raw filter, and then I would do my same processing. So I'm just going to do the quick version, right? Oh, look at, he's doing all the, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just dragging around. You get what I did, right? I'm just showing you what I'm processing here.
Let's say that's what I wanted. It's not really, but I'm going to say it is. I'm going to say OK. And there's my new image. But now it's down here as a smart filter. So on this one, the first one we did, there's no smart filter. So my processing that I did in Camera Raw, which I was more careful with, is kind of baked into the image. Now I'm stuck with it a little bit. But here, I'm not. So I could double click that, or actually double click here on Camera Raw filter, and it opens back in the Camera Raw. All right, right? So now I can go in and adjust it again. I could go back and do more my painting in of, you know, highlights and shadows kind of thing. Whatever I want to do. The same stuff I did on the previous one. And I say OK at the end, and it's updated. But if I want to edit it again, I just double click it again. Pretty sweet, right? So if you want to do that and have it more flexible and editable, you need to convert it to 16-bit. So it says 16-bit up here, or 16, that's next to the RGB. Before, and then make it a smart object so you can edit that smart filter. You could also save it as a TIFF and then open it in Camera Raw, but that's kind of flaky. So there's more than one way to do all this stuff, obviously. All right, so I think that's pretty good. I wanted to just go back to this one just for a second to show you. This is our first one that we did, yeah. And just to show you a little Camera Raw kind of look that you can add if you want. What I'm going to do, this is my first image. I'm going to take this image or this layer and duplicate it. So I'm going to drag it to the new layer icon. So now I've got two of the same layer. I'm on the first image that we did. And now I'm going to go to filter and blur and Gaussian blur and blur it a lot, like really fuzzy. There we go, something like that. And you're like, Mark, that looks terrible. This is terrible, but it can be fixed. So all I have to do over here is now go over here and change the blending mode. So blending modes are right here. I'm going to go to, let's go to soft light. And actually, if you want to try the different blending modes, make sure you're on the move tool, and you can hold down your shift and hit plus and minus, and you can cycle through different blending modes. So what I'm doing is I have this blurry copy of my HDR image on top of my regular one, and I'm cycling through blending modes. If you look over here, they're changing to the different blending modes. So it's a quick way to see, ooh, that's kind of interesting, right? It's a quick way to see some different versions, but the one I was if you do this screen, it makes it kind of light and kind of airy and dreamy, like, oh, it's a beautiful wedding or something like that. If you do some of the later ones, it gets dark. Oh no, it's Voldemort's coming, right? So it's dark and it's the same kind of stuff they do in films, actually. So I'm gonna go back to, actually pin light looks pretty good too. So I'm gonna go to, which one was I on? Soft light. Let's go to soft light. There's soft light. It adds contrast, but if I turn off that layer, you can see before and after. So it's just a quick way to add some sort of misty kind of feel to it, but if you change the blending mode, you can definitely change how it's going to look. So these basically make them darker. These will make them lighter. And then you can do some that do some crazy stuff like that, right? So just a little tip. All right. Whoa, and that's back to normal. That doesn't look great, right? Yeah, multiply. Let's go back to soft light. Okay, so there's soft light. Last thing to show you in Photoshop before I show you the other apps is you can do this stuff on a single image as well. So I'm going to go to File and Open, and I'm going to open just one of those NEFs. So I think number 2 or number 4 is the one I want. Yeah, sure. Doesn't really matter. And I'm going to say Open. It does matter, but not for this purposes. So here it is. Let's say I'm going to click Open Image. I didn't even do anything inside of HDR. But now I've got my one image open, my NEF open. And I'm going to go to Filter and, Image, and then Adjustments and HDR Toning. This works on JPEGs as well. So if you go to, I could have opened any old image and done that. I didn't even have to go to HDR in the first place. But I can go to Image, Adjustments, and HDR Toning. And then I get this HDR Toning dialog box, which we saw before. And you can see that it processes as an HDR, even though it's just one image, right? It does help if it's a raw image. But I have the same presets in here as well. I still have my Scott 5 that I could play with. But it's more pronounced, right? It's much more crazy contrasty, and it hurts my eyeballs actually. But yeah, I don't know why that is, but I can definitely mess with it and mellow it out a little bit. Turn down the detail a little bit. Turn down maybe the vibrance and saturation is hurting my eyeballs. But make it look more realistic or less, whatever you want. And there's tons of options in here that we don't really have time to go over. But that's also in there. And you can do that on any image. I could go and open a JPEG. I could go to File, Open, and open a JPEG. Just any old JPEG. Here's a JPEG number 3. Let's open it up. This is not an HDR image. It's just a JPEG. Wow, that is really dark. But if I go to image mode, or image adjustments and HDR toning, I can do, wow, it did get some information out there. So I can do HDR type processing on one image only if I want to. All right, so I wanted to show you that. Make sure you knew that was there. It can be fun to kind of do that kind of stuff and use that kind of HDR look on regular old images, fashion and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. All right, so next we will take a look at a couple of other apps that you could also use to do HDR.
Add it in Lightroom, so you can also do HDR in Lightroom. You can do it everywhere, it seems like. So here I've got the same 7 images, I think, from before. So imported into Lightroom, obviously. I'm going to do Command A to select them all. And then I'm going to go to Photo and Photo Merge and HDR. So Photo Merge. If I can get this in a good zoom for you guys, and HDR. And you can see you can also do HDR panoramas, but that's another subject. And then I get this kind of simple dialog box to merge. It has auto align, which you probably want to do. Auto settings, you could leave that on or off, but I'm going to leave it on for now. And then you've got deghosting amount. I'm actually going to do medium on this one because remember, maybe these leaves were moving and things like that. So if I put it on medium and actually click on this show deghost overlay. That is like a pretty cool album name. And I put it on medium, it's showing me that, well, there's some ghosting going on, or maybe there's some movement going on up here and it's going to help deghost, but not here maybe. So, and then that's pretty much all I have to do. I'm going to click merge. And then it's merging, merge. And it doesn't take too long depending on, well, it depends on your images, right? And I did 7, so it made it a little slower. And there we go. So now I have got 8 images, and you can see that the last one is, here it is. I don't know why it made it number 6, but here it's the DNG one here. It says DNG, which is digital negative. That's an Adobe format, but it can be opened by other things too. And then if I click on that and then click on develop, now I can see that it's already done some processing actually, but I can do whatever I want. Much the same as Camera Raw, right? The controls are very similar. I could adjust the highlights and the shadows and all that kind of thing. I can go up to here if I want to and go to the masking tool, and it's very similar again if I wanted to click on a brush and then I wanted to increase the exposure in this area, for example. Whoa, that's too much. Same stuff, same basic way. And the algorithm is basically the same, I think, internally as well. So you can definitely use Lightroom to do this as well. And we'll take a look at a couple more apps.
All right, this is just another app that you can use. I'm going to show you 3 more actually. Just super quick, just to let you know that they exist. So this one's called Photomatics or Photomatics Pro. I just have the demo version, so I'm just going to click Continue Trials after you install it. And it says Browse and Load to load images. So I'm going to click Browse and Load, and I will load the same 7 images. Wow, I'm tired of these images. So are you, but that's okay. I'm going to click Load. And this was kind of the go-to app before Photoshop, or it's still used by tons of people. So it does kind of a more detailed job than Photoshop does in HDR. So okay, so I chose the images. Yeah, I'm going to choose all those. It says choose merge options. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. It says align images. I could do ghosting, but I'm not going to get into that because I'm just showing you the app real fast. There's raw conversion options in here, all kinds of stuff. But we're just going to leave it the way it is. It's probably going to be fine. And say align and merge to HDR. And then we wait for it to do its magical processing again. All right, I cut out the middleman on that, or the middle time, so you wouldn't have to watch the progress bars. But here's what Photomatix looks like. So it has tons of controls. They are kind of intimidating, right? There's like, geez, how many controls? Like there's 10 right there. There's another 3, 4, 5. That's not even all of them. If you go under here, there's like 9 different categories of controls or styles or processes, and they all have different controls. It's just nuts. Thankfully, over here on the right, you've got a bunch of presets. So they are broken down as well. There's all styles. There's artistic, realistic, architecture, black and white, details, all kinds of stuff. You can just say all styles if you want, and then you'll see every preset. And there's lots of them. But then you can just kind of click on them. So here's one called Natural. And you see I'm not doing anything, right? I'm just clicking on these presets. That's called Photographic. Here's Balanced. If you want to go nutty for the HDR look, there's Painterly 3. And you can see it does a pretty nice job. Definitely has that HDR look. Super contrasty, high saturation, lots of detail. Sometimes it hurts your eyes. Some of these will be painful. There's realistic ones. There's some for interiors. So a lot of HDR, I didn't mention that, but a lot of shots that you see of rentals like Airbnb or hotels or all kinds of rental properties or sales properties, you'll see HDRs used in the shots to show the room nicely and then also be able to see out the window and that kind of thing. So HDR is used a ton in architecture. There's people that have their jobs like run around and take HDRs of interiors of houses. Anyway, so here's, wow, that one is, yeah, that's like, Alice in Wonderland kind of look. So that is that one. I mentioned these controls are intimidating. The good thing about it is if you open up this little help reveal down here, if you roll over any of these controls, it'll tell you what it does. So obviously you could choose any of these different presets and then start messing with the controls and get what you want. Well, it's not letting me mess with those, but yeah, there we go. And then it'll tell you kind of as you're doing that. And you can also save your preset. So there's save preset right there. I could save any preset that I like. If I make a different version of, let's say, this natural one that I like and I want to save it, I can just go to here to preset and save preset. So that is Photomatix. It's about $50 to $100. I think there might be educational discounts, but there's a demo, but I think it has a watermark. So, but it's a great app for HDR. And next I'm going to show you Aurora. All right, so this app is called Aurora HDR. This is a kind of a newer version, so it's a little buggy. We'll see if it's working. I'm gonna go ahead and click on Open Image. And I'm going to go to those files that I've been working with here. And I'm just gonna choose the JPEGs this time. 7 JPEGs, they're the same as the 7 NEF files. And it says HDR image was made from this. Yes, I want to check alignment to try it so it aligns them. And I'll say create HDR. And so this has a ton of options as well. Each of these apps you could have probably a whole semester class on, to be honest with you. But this one is pretty cool. It has some cool presets, if it opens, from some people that are pretty famous as far as people that do HDR. All right, so this is how it opens, and it starts from kind of a default kind of natural feel, and it does a really good job. So you can see into the shadows and the highlights again. But up here at the top, you click on this button if it's not visible, and down here at the bottom, whoops, there it is a bunch of presets. So there are categories here. If you click on categories, 2 of them are well-known people that do HDR. One is Trey Radcliffe, which we saw earlier maybe in the video. And then he's got all these presets in here that he has developed for this app. So this one's called Epic Vodka Party. This one's called Idea Objectivity. You get the idea, right? So there's a bunch of presets in here. There's also, you can start with any of those just like on the previous app or the other apps, and you can mess with them with all these different controls. It's kind of like a mini version of Photoshop, especially made for HDR photography. It does have layers. It has all kinds of different options. They do have another product that's kind of like a Photoshop competitor as well. But so that is called Aurora HDR. That's definitely a good option if you want to try that one out. I think that one's about $100, but I think there is an educational discount for that one as well.